Let's discuss the ins and outs of being a personal trainer. On this episode of the KIPS podcast, I have returning guest, Sorta Healthy Jeff. If you're familiar with his work on YouTube, he is publishing with his wife, Alexis, a lot of great content, whether it's study guides for different certification programs, reviews, or even like we're going to be talking about ins and outs of being a personal trainer. Now I'm going to bring Jeff on to this podcast in just a moment, but there's one thing that we didn't get to that I think is a popular but also important question, and that is personal training a good profession? Does it pay well? I see this question being asked on Reddit, YouTube, different platforms because people want to know if you're coming into this industry, are you going to be able to recoup some of that money you invested in your certification? Are you going to be able to make a living off of it? If you are starting out, it is a grind. That is probably something you hear in every single video, how it's tough, early mornings, late nights, being paid potentially minimum wage or a floor rate to be walking around trying to sell yourself as a personal trainer. And I bring these things up because oftentimes when you're starting off, you need to hit the ground running. You need to hit the ground, understand the realities of this profession, understand the role of this profession, that it is a lot of sales, and going in with that mindset that I need to start fast, I need to start building my hours, trying different things to build your hour list to go from 5, 10, 15 hours to potentially whatever the full-time mark is for your profession. In certain gym chains, if they're a well-established gym chain, they have a full-time mark. And with our industry being so unique, it's not 40 hours. A full-time mark for some gyms might be between 25 and 30 hours per week. Because like I mentioned, we have different requirements for this job. It is not a 9 to 5. Sometimes it is a 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then coming back later on 3:30 to 7:30. And those make up your hours. And maybe you're filling some pieces in with floor hours, some type of administration rate. I often see what the average pay is, what someone can expect to make if it's going to be $30,000 to $50,000. And I honestly think those are kind of low. If you are working, if you worked your way to work at a high-end gym like a Life Fitness and Equinox, and I know there's other great gyms out there, I just can't name them while I'm recording this video, but if you can work your way to one of those facilities, you can make solid money per hour, you can get benefits, and you could make more than that. When I first started off in this industry back in 2009, I knew trainers that were making over 6 figures inside of a facility, a large facility in a good area. And I bring that up because hopefully that's motivation to work that way, to hit the ground running, to make sure that this is my goal. I enjoy this profession. I like helping people and I can make a living doing it. So is this a good profession? The answer, I think it's yes. I have to say that because I've been in this industry for over 18 years. And I think that if you are passionate about it and that you can understand all the roles in different ways to make money as a fitness instructor, yeah, you can do it. So let's get the episode with Jeff. Drop in your advice in the comments for new personal trainers on different ways to hit the ground running. Let's get to the episode. Jeff, welcome to the KIPS podcast. I want to kick off this episode with just some insight into how you started your channel, which at the moment, correct me if I'm wrong, it's over 80,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah, I think we're closing in on 90, trying to get my flat. We're getting close to flat.
Oh man, that'll be a big moment. But I have Sorta Healthy Jeff on the KIPS podcast. How did you go about starting the channel? What was the reason for it? What kicked it off? And kind of what has made you continue with YouTube?
That's a really good question. So I would say, by the way, thank you for having me on the podcast. Appreciate you. Yeah, I would say for me, I started the YouTube channel because I saw a need. So there wasn't enough good personal trainer education content out there. Wasn't really a good roadmap to go from not certified yet to recently certified to good personal trainer to successful business owner and so on and so forth. Yep. So I just saw all these gaps where there could be good content, but instead you had gurus and people trying to take your money and people who hadn't really done it. Yeah. And by the time I had the YouTube channel, I was probably already a trainer for 7, 8 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. So I already had a good amount of experience under my belt. I had a business that was fairly new, but doing reasonably well. So I had already covered a lot of that ground. I just thought, I'm going to make some content about this. And it became really easy to do that when my business was shut down for 3 or so months during COVID. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to be a full-time YouTuber for the next 3 months. And that's kind of where it started. And then I've just tried to post as often as I can, since that point.
Yeah. And I will say, having seen your videos, seen the comments that are coming in on them, you are helping a lot of trainers, new trainers, active trainers out there. And that is the type of feedback that really it goes towards your hard work. You and Alexis are working hard on these videos, putting out solid content that is actively helping people. I think that is something to applaud, give yourself a pat on the back, because it's this field, it's tough. Very challenging field. And those are things that we're going to talk about throughout this episode, hopefully helping new trainers, existing trainers with finding jobs, finding ways to build their careers. And I thought a good area to start would actually be on applying to gyms. On the KIPS YouTube channel, I have made a few videos in the last few months about hiring, the resume, hiring tips, interview tips. What do you usually recommend for a new trainer that they just got their certification? They're looking in their area. They're seeing gyms like LA Fitness, Golds, potentially Equinox, Lifetime Fitness, maybe an EOS. They're like, what's the difference from these? What do you usually recommend navigating that type of search?
Best advice I can give is apply to all of them and take the first one that gives you a job. Because the reality of it is some LA Fitness locations are actually pretty good places to work, and some are terrible. I don't know as much about EOS, but I'm sure it's the same, right?
Yeah.
Where, again, you get some of these franchise locations are well run. They have good supervisors who will actually teach you how to be a trainer. And then other times you just don't get that. So apply to a whole bunch of them, work at least one of them for a period of time, learn the trade. And again, even at a mediocre or bad location, there's still going to be good things to take away from that experience. You're going to learn what not to do from other trainers, and you are still going to learn some tricks of the trade, I guess. You're going to get that hands-on experience. You're going to get more comfortable working with clients, with signing clients on. So apply to all of them, and then, you can pick and choose a little bit from there. And I would say, if you're someone who's a little bit less outgoing, or maybe you think you'll struggle with sales, another good option is to try to find like a local private studio. I run one of those. I kind of started, I would say, my training career mostly at a private studio, like a local place. Even though I did work at some other gyms too, but really the private studio is where I grew and became like a good trainer. So it's another good option, something to consider.
Can you dive into that a little bit more there? I think that might be something good for somebody that is new and might not know what this route is. They might not understand, like there's other options out there. What is the kind of the setup for a private studio gym typically? And I know that things vary from city to city, gym to gym. What is kind of the setup there?
Yeah, so I run a private studio that just does personal training. We do semi-private personal training. We do one-on-one personal training. And it's really nice for my trainers because I do all the sales. Well, Alexis, my wife, and I do all the sales. So my trainers just come in and they train people, and I pay them a pretty good wage to do that. So it's a very competitive wage for the area. And again, there's no sales hassle. There's none of that stuff. So it's really good in that way. Not only that, but we kind of mentor them. Actually, we mentor them a lot for the first 3 to 6 months. We teach them how to train people. Again, some of them are going to know somewhat well already how to train people, but we have our own way of doing it that we like to have them at least learn. We just teach them pretty much everything from the ground up. So I think it's a good opportunity for someone who's a little bit less salesy, a little bit less comfortable in the big box environment.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
Every nice area every nice area. Most like affluent areas have places like that, whether
Yeah.
it's a one-on-one studio, a small group studio, a semi-private studio, or some combination of all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why I asked it that way is I have worked for a private studio before where I had to bring in my own clients. I paid a rent fee, and your setup sounds like an ideal situation for a new trainer. Get a great onboarding education, tutorials that are going to help you with learning the ins and outs that some people, they just get thrown into the fire. And I do want to go back to what, with like the whole LA Fitness setup, because I've mentioned in other podcasts before how I had great hands-on experience. I didn't like working for an LA Fitness, and I'm not trying to bash LA Fitness. I think that there are good things that you could take away from it. And for me personally, at that time in my career, it was getting rep after rep after rep, so that it becomes second nature how you break down an exercise for different demographics. And hopefully then you could level up and go to a gym where they're paying a better wage. But I think exactly how you mentioned, get something out of it that hopefully you can build on.
Yeah, I think you can always start at an LA Fitness, or heck, even a Planet Fitness, or you can start any of these places. And then once you've worked there for a year, maybe 2 years, you can go work at an Equinox or a Lifetime or a nice private studio location around you that might be a little bit more selective. So yeah, getting in the reps, building up the resume. I typically these days, I won't look at a trainer unless they already have a year of experience. So yeah, just because I have, 100 something clients coming through my doors 3+ times a week. So they need to know how to train people. And again, I'll mentor them. But yeah, I like them to have at least a little bit of an idea of how to train clients before they pop in. Plus, I also want to know, are you actually going to stick with this? If you're someone who has put in a year somewhere else, okay, I know you're serious. I know this is something you actually can see yourself doing long term. You probably don't view it as a hobby. You're trying to make a career out of this, and you just need to find the right place. So
yeah, a quick break in this video. If you are needing CEUs, make sure that you head to the link that's in the description, where you can find all our online courses that have pre-approvals with NASM, ISSA, ACE, AFA, NCSF, and with NESTA. We of course offer free content on our YouTube channel, but if you're needing professional ed, with some of you having the full amount to recertify, make sure you head to that link. And now let's get back to the video. Good little segue here to actually the interview. That has been a very popular topic on the KIPS YouTube channel. And I think it's actually one of my most popular videos I've made in the last year-ish was about the interview. And I can see that. You walk into an interview, you don't know what's going to happen. If you're new, especially, you're like, what kind of questions are that ask me to break down an exercise? For you, when you are interviewing somebody, potentially you're going to hire them, what is a common mistake that comes up with somebody?
That's a good one. Well, show up on time and make sure you are at least somewhat professionally dressed. We're talking fitness professional is the term I like to use for it. So like a polo, some decent looking pants, just come and look presentable. Have a resume printed and ready to go. Helps out. And from there, just be serious about being a trainer, right? If I ask you like, hey, where do you see yourself in 2 years, whatever the question might be, don't tell me, oh, I don't know. Say like, I want to be a successful trainer doing this number of sessions a week, working with this demographic. And if you don't know, just make it up. But yeah, you need to have an idea of where you want to go, how you want to get there, and be prepared, be professional.
Yeah. Do you do any simulated personal training sessions, potentially walk them through here's the client and here are their current health history limitations? Do you walk them through anything like that?
Yeah, so we typically do. So for my interview process, I'll do a phone interview first, just to see if like, hey, is what you're looking for the same thing that I'm looking for?
Mhm.
Assuming that goes well, I bring them into the studio, give them a tour. That's the in-person interview. So I ask a few more questions, which I'm actually about to do this like literally in a day or two. I'm interviewing some people.
Mhm.
And assuming that goes well, the next stage would be a practical interview. And if that goes well, then they got the job,
Yeah,
you know?
that has been something that in my mind, and I made a video on it, that I think that is a great focal point for a new trainer. When
Yeah.
you are taking a certification exam, they're throwing things like the consultation, program design. There's a lot of things in there, but how does it all package together? I think trying in your mind to work out the reps of a simulated personal training session, whether you are training friends or family, or if you are already working for a gym, training your peers, just so you get that the reps and the rhythm of it, because most likely you are over programming at the beginning because you don't know how much you can fit inside of an hour in a simulated personal training session. When you are interviewing somebody, potential hire, what is it that you're looking for?
Well, I'd say if someone over programs, I don't consider that a bad thing because we can always scale it back, once we get into the actual session itself. So you can tell like the newer trainers, they way over program. They're not
Mhm.
thinking about like, oh, how much is the average person going to actually get done
Yeah.
in an hour or 45 minutes because they don't know. They're not the average person. They're a personal trainer, someone who works out all the time, right? So
Yeah.
if you over program and you're a little bit over prepared, uh, totally fine. Don't hold that against you. If you're a little bit nervous, totally fine. Don't hold that against you. I would say the only people who I kind of disqualify right away are the ones who aren't prepared enough, which
Mm.
that happens pretty often. They don't have anything written up and they're just kind of winging the workout.
Yeah.
So I would say just prepare. You're probably going to be given a scenario like what you were saying in a lot of these practical interviews. I'm trying to think what we did last time we were hiring. Last time we were hiring and we had to do practical interviews, I think we had like a basically the client had to pretend they were training like a middle-aged female who had like a knee issue or something along those
Mhm.
lines. And I had like two or three trainers all do really well with it. And yeah, it did eventually come down to, who had the better availability for what we needed and things like that. But yeah, just over prepare a little bit and I think you'll be good to go.
I think that's good insight there with the profile of the individual. And I think
Yeah.
that those are things that, a trainer is going to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
that they are, well, not all clients are 100% healthy, that they're just perfectly fit. They most likely have something that's banged up or something from the past. And how are you going to work around it?
Right.
And I remember the one time, and I had to do a simulated personal training session. It had to be for the gym that we have mentioned before, LA Fitness.
Mhm.
It was the peak hours. I think it was like 5 p.m. and the gym was packed. And exactly what you mentioned, you're nervous because I had the fitness manager and the assistant fitness managers watching me over my shoulder, and you're trying to act like they're not there. And you're like, okay, I'm just
It's,
going to train
it's
this
pretty
person.
nerve-wracking. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty scary. It really is. Yeah.
I would say work on, don't forget being personable.
Mhm.
Even though it's a simulated personal training session, come with some questions to
Yeah.
ask the person that are not fitness related, how their day is going, what do they do, something to just get the conversation going. Because I also think that's going to kind of calm your nerves too, that you're going to, okay, settle into it. And it's just like you practiced before.
Yeah. Keep it light. And I think what you said there is 100% true. Ask a lot of questions, personal questions. What do you have going on for the week?
Yeah,
Do you have any trips coming up? When
good one.
when are you done with work for the day? Just ask random things and try to build some rapport because that's what you're going to actually do in a personal training session. Lately, I've been saying that one-on-one sessions are 60% social skills and 40% practical or coaching skills. It
Yeah.
might even be more than that. It might be like 70%, social skills, 30% practical coaching skills. So flex those social skills in that initial interview. It's going to help because I, as the manager, have to envision you communicating with the clients. And that's a big part of what's going to keep those clients. And that's the person that I want in my gym or my studio.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nose there. Right with the just being sociable, showing that to the manager, because they need to feel comfortable with you stepping onto the floor, training people that if they were to give you a new client or a potential lead on a client, is that person going to hopefully connect with you? They are trying to, managers get leads, come across their desk, and they divvy them up, and they're trying to find the best fit with all these different leads. And if they don't think that they're going to like you, if they think that they're going to be better suited with somebody else, that's kind of how it works out there in the gym with that, when there are multiple trainers there, and yourself being a manager, and I'm sure you're divvying up leads or people that are coming in. You're trying to find those best fits based on their personalities.
Yeah, my studio is run pretty differently. So yeah, basically the way mine works is I think we have 5, 6. We have some staffing changes right now for the first time in a while. We have 6 trainers total. And essentially each trainer just has a shift. So, Mondays it's a certain trainer for the morning, it's a certain trainer for the afternoon. On Tuesday, it's a certain trainer for the morning, certain trainer for the afternoon. And if you come in a certain day or time, you're working with the trainer who's on at that time. So yeah, it's a different way of doing it, but it works out really well for my clients. And it makes it so that, like I said before, myself and Alexis, we do all the sales anyways. We don't have to do as much training in our studio at this point. We do not much. And I just have good trainers I get to train. And if those trainers want to go on vacation, they can. Someone else can easily fill in. All the clients are kind of used to working with multiple trainers. So if a trainer, God forbid, quits, doesn't matter. The client stays because they work with multiple trainers anyways. It's kind of a better way to do it if you're running a larger scale thing. But it's totally different everywhere you go.
That's a good setup. I think that kind of is another good transition here to something I've seen more people posting about. I think you made a video recently on your channel about semi-private training. Can you give a breakdown for what that is?
Yeah, semi-private training is very misunderstood because you have small group training and of course, you have semi-private training, and they are similar in a lot of ways, but they're also pretty different. Semi-private training is typically 2 to 6 people training in a room with a single trainer. And each of those 2 to 6 clients has a fairly different workout plan. So one client might be bench pressing, while another client is doing a dumbbell row, while another client is doing a bicep curl, so on and so forth. Whereas small group training is kind of the more traditional setup where you're in a room, 2 to 10 people. So a little bit more people in the group, a little bit less attention from the coach in small group training. And everyone's pretty much doing the same thing. If someone's doing bicep curls, the whole class is doing bicep curls. If someone's doing med ball slams, everyone is doing some version of med ball slams, even though there might be some modifications to that thing. So there's more personalization in semi-private training. It is harder to coach that way, and it does oftentimes require a little bit of a different equipment setup to pull off. But you can charge significantly more money for it. It feels a lot more like a one-on-one session than a small group session in a lot of ways. And yeah, there's just a lot of cool things about it. We've been offering it for almost exactly a year in our studio, and it's been our best year by far. And it's allowed me to, like I said, not work in the studio as much. And it's allowed my other coaches in my facility to kind of coach more. It's a little bit less personality based than one-on-one training, which is what we used to offer. So yeah, it's worked out really well for us.
What skills would you recommend, or would you say that a trainer would want to develop in order to do semi-private training?
Yeah, I would say all of the same skills that apply to one-on-one or small group, they're the same skills you're using semi-private. Semi-private, in my opinion, is just a little bit tougher than either one because you're taking the personality aspect, at least to some extent, from one-on-one training, and now you have to find a way to evenly divide it amongst, 2 to 6 people. And unlike small group training, where you're just saying, hey, go do med ball slams, and everyone just goes and does med ball slams or push-ups or something, the programming is more individualized. So it's taking some of the aspects of one-on-one and small group, mixing them together. So you pretty much just have to be good all the way around. You have to know how to coach. You have to know how to mix in the personality, and then you got to figure out how to mix it all together.
Yeah.
So I would say you can do it and you can master it pretty quickly. But I found that coaches who are already good at one-on-one or small group, they have a much easier time picking up semi-private.
Gotcha. To me, it seems like a great way to be efficient with your time. I feel like that is one of the things as you go through your career, you're looking for ways to how can I, when I am training at the gym, how can I add either more sessions in, more clients in? And if you are utilizing your skills that you've been developing, people are going to see that. And if you can work across different exercises, be efficient with it, people still feel like they're getting a good deal out of it. I think that is it's a win-win. With the pricing structure, what is that looking like for semi-private?
Yeah, so I mean, you'll find it done differently in a lot of different places. But in my studio right now, we're actually about to increase prices. But yeah, if you come in 2 times a week, and these sessions are about 45 to 50 minutes long, so they're not a full hour. For 2 times a week is $69 a week, and then for unlimited times a week, it's $99 a week. So that's it. You pick one of the 2 options there. Yep.
It's good. It's a good deal. And I think that people are still looking for good deals across the board. And for that aspect of community, they get that as well. Or would you say that a client gets it?
Yeah, they do get it for sure. But I do think semi-private in some instances is different than small or large group, right? Because the example I like to use, I'll use an example from yesterday. I was in there in the morning, and there was one semi-private session that had 4 people all training at the same time. And basically, they were almost not talking to each other at all. Each client was in their rack or their area, doing their own thing, doing their own workout, being coached by the trainer who was going around to all 4 locations, coaching each person. And the trainer was having little conversations with each person, but they really weren't talking with each other a whole lot. Then I had a session myself later in the day where it's a bunch of dentists and doctor folks who all know each other, and they were all just chatting the whole time. So I would say it's kind of a different thing. It's almost like going to a restaurant or like a bar, and sometimes tables will be talking to one another, and sometimes they won't be. They're doing their own thing at their own table. So semi-private is unique in that way.
Fascinating. I feel like that was a big hot topic coming out of the pandemic was how can you build a community? Where are you building your community? People want to see people, but I mean, as each year goes by, something new kind of comes up. And I feel like that has become that hot topic, semi-private training, how are you integrating it? And for all the reasons you mentioned with the efficiency, I think it's right there. So very cool to hear and get a little breakdown of it. With moving on to now another popular topic that I see on Reddit, on YouTube, and that is about common reasons people leave, but common mistakes personal trainers are doing and hopefully ways to avoid them. I mean, I know that you and I have talked about this before in different podcast episodes. We've made videos about it, and we continue to make videos about it because hopefully people understand that this profession, it does require work out of the get-go, that hitting the ground going, coming in with some knowledge and understanding that you're going to have to hustle, I think is important. And I mean, you have shared some great insight into ways that trainers can hopefully integrate their skills, look at different avenues for getting their feet into gyms or into private studios. Right now, what are you typically saying, or what are you in the newer videos that you're making for common reasons that trainers are leaving and some of those mistakes that they're making?
Yeah, I mean, I think trainers leave. We talked about this recently on a podcast, YouTube video. I think it's unrealistic expectations. So they're coming in they're expecting personal training to be something, and it's something else very different, right? They think, oh, I like working out. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to work out with these people. And then, they're training clients and their client hates working out. First of all, it's hard to even sign the client on in the first place, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. And then you realize, okay, well, this is mostly a sales job. At least it is in the beginning when I have to acquire all these clients. Eventually it becomes less of a sales job and it becomes more of a training job, but you have to get over that hump initially. So sales job first, that's the first unrealistic expectation. People don't expect that coming in very often. They don't expect to deal with people who don't like to exercise when it's almost every single personal trainer client. That's why they're hiring you, right?
Yeah.
The hours are tricky oftentimes because you're training people when they're not working, right? So it's before or after work. And yeah, there's always like this fairy tale of like, oh, I'm going to train those retirees in the middle part of the day. In most areas, there's not enough retirees to make a career out of doing that. So good luck. Eventually you can pull it off maybe, but I mean, those are some of the main reasons. Money is also a big thing, but I think that ties in with just not being booked up right away, right? Because if you're booked up fairly well as a trainer, you can make pretty good money, especially if you're in a decent spot. But it takes time to get to that point. So it's just unrealistic expectations across the board. And I think some of that is the certification companies are a little bit to blame there as well. They're teaching you some skills that really don't transfer over that well to the actual job. And they're working on that. I talk to people at a lot of these different organizations, and they're always trying to figure out ways to be more practical. But so far, those skills, you got to learn them on the job.
Yeah. You hear me out on something that I've been trying to work through my head with these different programs, but also integrating it into for a new certified personal trainer. I feel like certified trainers need to figure out their own system that makes sense with what they are trying to brand themselves as a personal trainer. And let me dive into that a little bit more here. If with each of these certifying programs, they all have their own program design systems. When I worked at Nesta, it was assess, program, reassess. I'm already failing at that in terms of like what it was. But NASM was the OPT model. They all have their own systems, and I'm drawing a blank on what ACE is, but these are. There you go. That they have these systems that they teach to new certified personal trainers, and they think, okay, I just need to go through these steps. But then how does that relate to what you are trying to brand yourself as trainers? Do you speak that language normally? Does that make sense for how the programs that maybe you did for yourself that now you want to teach to somebody? How does it all fit into it? I think that trainers need to eventually, not off the bat, but eventually come up with their own system so that when they're training, it comes off smoother, but also whatever your pitch is, we're talking about sales pitches here, whatever your pitch is for somebody to work with them, it becomes more fluent. It becomes smoother. Your release to them. If you're telling them that here's where we're going to start and here's what the middle part is and the end part. But if you have a system that you've kind of made yourself, and when you are coming up with your closing pitch, and they're like, oh, well, that does sound like something I want to do, or that fits with what I was thinking I want to do. I think that there is something there that trainers should hopefully look towards. Don't copy, make something of your own that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I think they call that a unique selling proposition, a USP or something along those lines, right? Yeah. So, yeah, and you can do what I did. I just took the OPT model, a little bit of, other models that I knew at the time. And I said, okay, well, I think this part of the OPT model is stupid. I'm going to throw that part out. I like this part. I'm going to keep that part. I'm going to bring in the part from the NSCA. I'm going to take this part from something else. And then I'm going to kind of figure out my own version of all that. And I think you're right. I think having your own, unique way of doing it is big. And you don't necessarily want to blast it everywhere, but I think having that system, using it with clients, and then kind of having it ready to go if someone asks you about it in a sale or if you're training a client, I think that's good to have own unique, at least somewhat unique way of doing it.
Yeah. I just think that is one of the pitfalls that I see is a lot of trainers come in, they try to copy exactly what the text says. I've been doing all the steps that are in here and it's just not working. You got to be yourself. You got to let that personality show, and exactly what you mentioned with the interpersonal skills. I think you mentioned 60%. Well,
I think so. Yeah. And the
if
average,
not more.
if not more. Yeah. In the average
Yeah.
personal training session, one-on-one, it's mostly talking about what you got going on this weekend. And then sure, you're checking form on that squat, but that part is actually pretty easy to do. It is, if we're talking about just retaining the client and keeping them over a long period of time, which is the thing that is going to pay your bills. Yeah, just being a good, personable person matters a lot. And that's just good communication. That's all it is.
Yeah. Some good insight throughout this episode with things to focus on, new, intermediate trainer, or maybe you are even an advanced trainer. You've been in the industry for over 3 years and you're finding your way. I'm going to get us to our podcast takeaways here. And I always like to give a little breakdown of how I came up with this question. Years ago, I was watching a documentary on Amazon Prime called Iron Cowboy. It was an individual that did 50 Ironman distances in 50 different states. I believe it's still on Amazon Prime right now. And he was asked on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, what are 3 myths about Ironman competitions? And I thought, let's spin it for the KIPS podcast. So Jeff, what are 3 myths about being a personal trainer?
Ooh, now we talked about a few of them, I think, just now. I think myth 1 is you're going to get in there, and because you like working out, you're going to also love being a personal trainer. And I think that is unfortunately why so many trainers quit, right?
Yeah.
That's myth 1. Just because you like working out does not mean you should be a trainer. And it doesn't mean, that doesn't mean some of those skills are going to transfer over just because you like working out.
Yep.
Myth 2, I think, is because there's a lot of gurus in the space. It's just that I'm going to get rich right away as a trainer. And, that takes a long time for anything appointment based, but especially personal training. Unless you're in like a really nice area charging a premium, you're not going to get rich. You can, but it's not a job that you should do for the money. It takes a long time to make good money, I'll say. Third myth ties into that, but the hours being super flexible. Getting to a point where your hours are super flexible takes a while. I think it took me a very long time to get to that point. I was working before work hours. I was working after work hours, oftentimes in the same day, doing a split shift. You're working weekends. You're kind of just doing whatever you have to do to survive. And you're training clients where you sign them on. So I would say those are some of the biggest ones for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with the hours, and that'll be the one that I comment on here. That is, if you are thinking, I'm going to get some middle of the day clients and because I have that time free. Everybody wants those clients. Everybody wants the 11 a.m., the 1 p.m. client, the retired individual that is usually playing golf during the week, that this is their hour workout. Everybody wants those clients. And so it's very tough to get them, but if you do, fantastic. It takes time, just how Jeff said. Before we sign off here, Jeff, can you throw out YouTube channel, social media, and anything that you potentially have coming up?
Yeah, Sorta Healthy Trainer Education on YouTube. That's where we're the most active. We're posting every Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern time, somewhere around there. So that's kind of a new thing, trying to get more consistent with my uploads. Sorta Healthy Trainer Education podcast. That's something we've started recently. I'm Sorta Healthy Jeff on Instagram. I don't post on there nearly enough, but I'm trying to get better with that. And my studio's Commence Fitness Personal Training in Southington, Connecticut. So if you're ever in the area, come by and say hi. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got going on. Gonna hopefully be talking at some conferences coming up. So that's cool. But more information on that to come.
Perfect. Make sure you subscribe. Help Jeff get to that 90,000 and then 100 so he can get his plaque. Those are big achievements. Very big achievements on YouTube. As always, Jeff, a pleasure talking with you, and make sure you go subscribe.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.